everybody. Thank you so much for showing up on a Saturday on such an important topic, that too.
Absolutely.
Over
Thank
to
you,
you.
everyone. Yeah, thank you, Shreya. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We have a fantastic session on female health and more, hosted by our speaker, Aruna Chawla here. Aruna is a two-time founder in female healthcare, startup operator, trained functional nutritionist, biohacker, health behavior researcher, and writer. She has built solutions for hormonal health management at one of her previous startups. She works exclusively with female leaders and knowledge workers for their health, productivity, and fertility goals. We are so happy that she's joined us here and open to do a session for our community. I will now not take too much of your time and please carry on. Aruna, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Arushi, Shreya, Karen, for making this happen. Today's session will be very interactive. I do have a few slides with a lot of information, but I want you guys to feel completely free to send in your questions via chat. The best for a speaker is actually when you're able to unmute yourself and actually have that conversation. So feel free to use the next 1.5 hours to clarify anything under the sun. Typically, there are a few caveats in what we may not be able to speak about, and I'll get to it right in a bit. So, quick thoughts, right? This is a quick snapshot of my recent biomarkers health trends. The reason why I'm sharing so much data here is because we're all women in tech. We understand data best. Health and wellness and fitness is not something that exists outside of data. There's a way for us to measure if we're actually healthy or not. Obviously, our body awareness has a lot to do with it, but there are also ways for us to measure this. The reason why I also share this is because about 8 to 9 years ago, after 6, 7 years of debilitating PCOS, doctors had actually told me, you're never going to be fertile, forget having an ambition, you have an as easy a life as possible, because with your health concerns, things are just not going to work for you. Using health, wellness, nutrition, biohacking, all of that, I was not only able to reverse that, but also ended up becoming a successful tech founder over the years. The picture that you see of mine is from my 29th birthday this year, where I ran a 10K. I did have the birthday girl sash on, but broadly, this is what it looks like. If I was to get tested today, there was no detection of PCOS possible anymore. The reason why I share this is because it is 100% possible for us to be healthy despite whatever our history in terms of health, genetics might talk about. But I also say this keeping in mind that it's not time conducive to put in the kind of effort that social media asks us to put in to stay healthy, to stay fit. I don't spend actually a lot of time focusing just on my health. It's much simpler than that. I share this to tell you that I work 10 to 12 hours a day. I am not one of those people who will ever ask you to have work life balance. I love the work I do. I'm extremely, extremely ambitious. I think for all of us in startups, especially early stage, we know how exhausting it is. And I live that life on a day-to-day basis. There are no Saturdays or Sundays for me. I was working on the day of my wedding. I was back to work a week after that as well. What I'm going to do today is, however, help you understand how you can use data to improve your health and how you can integrate it with the kind of demanding lifestyle you might already have. So I'm not going to ask you to, work lesser hours and spend more time at home or do things that you may not be able to measure. Everyone with me so far, a quick show of hands or a quick emoji react would be great. Awesome.
I was just saying you're a woman after my own heart.
Yeah, thank you.
Totally aligned with that. I'm like, I want to be able to do everything I want to do
Yeah,
without worrying about anything that's
yeah.
remotely health. I want to push myself and work as many as hours as
Correct.
I'd like.
Yeah, dude, like the whole reason why I want to be so fucking healthy is because I want to do great fucking things in the world. I wanted to be one of the
Yeah,
10
baby. I love
founders.
this stuff.
Yeah. And I think, I also find it very partly misogynistic when our healthcare tells us that the only way to be healthy for women, especially, is to slow down. I don't want to slow down. I want to have the energy to do a lot more. And data actually helps us understand how and where we get that energy from. So that's all that we're going to talk about today. I hope everyone's going to be okay with a visual that I'm going to show. Today, we're quickly going to be discussing, just to give you a sense of how I've divided this workshop. We'll talk about our physical health and how our female physiology works to understand, our energy, productivity, etc. We'll talk about how we can optimize breakfast and afternoon slumps. We'll talk about brain health and cognitive function, something most of us forget to think of when we're talking about health, especially when, we're working in tech roles. We'll also talk about how you can build your wellness blueprint. Q&A, I've kept time aside, but feel free to keep it as interactive as possible. I would love to continue to answer questions, clarify things that don't make sense. I think a lot of these concepts may also be newer and things that you may not find as easily on social media. So if you're queasy, let me know. But this is what our body looks like from the inside. This is what our ovaries, our clitoris, our uterus look like. The reason why I'm sharing this is because if we don't even know what body parts we have, it's very hard for us to actually focus on staying healthy. And a traditional narrative is, usually that if we have our periods, just rest. Like treat your body as an exception to the norm. It doesn't work like that. Our body and a man's body look completely different. So there's no reason for us to, say this is how men stay productive, this is how they stay most energetic. And whenever we are not feeling as energetic, either we push ourselves too much or we just take rest. There's a smarter way to do that takes into account our unique physiology, right? We'll spend about 5-10 minutes just talking about this. I'm going to explain how our physiology works for different phases of the menstrual cycle. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, because this is what forms the basis of every other thing that you do. Yeah. So let's say there's a 28-day cycle. It's quite normal for us to have a cycle between 21 to 35 days, as long as it's consistent. If it's below that or higher than that, then it is a cause of concern. But the goal here is to follow consistency. Just on average, a 28-day cycle we're taking, completely normal if you have a 25 or 32-day cycle as well. Our cycle is divided into two parts. The first half is the follicular phase that starts as soon as our menstrual phase ends. Our ovulation marks the middle of our cycle, which is when our ovaries release an egg. And this next half of the cycle is the luteal phase. Now, just one caveat here. I completely take into account that we're discussing this not with the idea of how to have babies, but fertility is a sign of our body working the way it should. You are completely free to disregard questions on pregnancy here. But the idea here still is the healthier you are, the more fertile you're going to be, the more productive you will be, the more energy you will have, the better libido you will have. So all of it at the end of the day does come down to that, right? When we talk of estrogen, this gray line that you see, if you notice, it starts to slowly increase in the first half, then drops in the second half, increases slightly in the second half, and then goes down to zero. Now, what estrogen does is a hormone that leads to increased clarity, it leads to increased motivation. So many of us, with seemingly balanced hormones per se, might experience ourselves feeling a lot more energetic, a lot more social in the first half of the cycle. What it also does is it influences hunger regulating hormones, because that is a stage where your body is in a growth phase, the first half of the cycle. So you may not have as much of an appetite, but by the time you get to your second phase, there might be more cravings. Now, cravings are also a sign of us not feeding our body the way it should. So if we are preemptively planning for what kind of sources or what kind of fueling our body needs, craving can be solved for as well. Yeah, guys, stop me anytime. I know this is a sciencey lesson, but it's important for us to understand this. Then there's progesterone, this purple line that you see that starts to increase during the time of ovulation. What progesterone does is it suppresses the release of the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone to prevent another egg from being released by the ovaries in the same period, which is also why it causes a fall in estrogen to prevent that kind of egg release. you might experience more fatigue, more sluggishness, and lower motivation. It also works on stimulating appetite. It is quite normal for our bodies as women to need different amount of calories at different times of the month. So for a lot of us who are trying to lose weight and feel hungrier at certain times of the month, it is quite normal. A good health plan, a good diet plan, a good workout plan will actually build this in, rather than say that every day of your month should look the same and you should eat a similar way. It doesn't work like that at all. You'll also find other hormones there. One important thing I want to point out here is the basal body temperature, the topmost blue line here. In the follicular phase, our body temperature is a little lower. In the luteal phase, it rises by 0.5 to 1 degree Fahrenheit. This is to take into account that there is a ovum that has been released by the ovaries, and the body is creating a conducive environment for it should there be a pregnancy. So again, all of this completely normal. We don't have to think that progesterone is the villain or estrogen is the villain. None of that. The better they work in tandem with each other, the better our productivity is going to be, the better we'll feel about our bodies as well. Everyone with me so far? Yeah, guys, any questions there? We will get into biomarkers that you can start to look at very easily right away to start paying attention to this. So this is a good time to ask questions, have any kind of clarity around period health, around, through the cycle. Feel free to do that.
Aruna, I just wanted to add,
Yeah.
this is what brings you to the juncture of trying to understand work days, right? A usual work day or a work week is so designed by men for men that we don't have an ecosystem that allows for women to work with these phases.
Correct.
So wouldn't, I keep, the ideal world would be where we can all align and understand. We don't even know, right? A lot of women don't even know their bodies, don't even know a lot about this because it's not spoken about, it's not addressed. So it really makes you wonder how the entire design of this and the entire design of women's health is around them reproducing. And nothing else gets attention other than the fact that we pop babies out. And, not only are we penalized for it, but we're also stuck in that loop of everything from insurance to, women's health being focused completely on just reproductive phases. And the before and the after, and especially for people like me who are perimenopausal, there's so little research. You're perimenopausal for 7 to 10 years, and then menopause hits. And again, we've not designed the world in a way that is supportive of this ecosystem. So I just wanted to bring that up. And
yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think that work environments are actually built for women to thrive, right? I know it's quite sexist to consider the fact that, women weren't allowed to enter kitchens when they were bleeding, all of that. But if you also think about it, like, and I'm very religious, to be honest, right? And I say that with a lot of pride, but also with the idea that I study a lot of science and I study the human body clearly. So I'll give you an example, right? During the Kartik month in the Hindu calendar, I fast the whole month. Karwa Chauth is part of that month. If you actually pay attention to what the text says, it is the day that a woman needs to rest up, which means she's not going to touch anything that uses iron. She's not going to wash utensils or wash dishes. She's to be left alone for her to rest and relax, right? Even the period bleeding months, if you look at traditionally how it used to work, was that is a time where you're not expected to work. But it worked when we were in joint families. Now we live in nuclear families or we live solo. There is so much more work on our heads, right? And we need to show up on a day-to-day basis. I'll give you a personal example of how I look at this in my own life. But also just a caveat that it is bio-individual and depends from person to person as well in terms of what your responsibilities are, the whole thing. I say this as somebody with a lot of domestic responsibilities at my in-laws, a tech startup where I have to look after so many more people. The whole deal. I think of it as the number of spoons I have in any given day. It was a resource that I learned in therapy that I ended up applying to health as well. Let's say during the first phase of my cycle, I have 10 spoons, but socializing just takes away half a spoon for me. So I can do a lot more of it. In the second phase of my cycle, maybe it takes 2 spoons for me. So I may not do as much. It's always a trade-off between what we can and what we cannot. Because for me, I want to prioritize rest. There's research that says we need about 42% of rest for optimum recovery and productivity, which means that sleep, which is physical rest, mental rest, creative rest, social rest, all the different 7 kinds of rest should actually be a part of our life. Over the years, and it was really hard in the beginning, I will not lie, but over the years, I've been able to figure out what kind of rest to incorporate while living an active and social life. So I'm part of a community called Leap Club, and I visit their offline space a lot. There are times when I'm just interacting with people socially, but in a very relaxed environment. Or we are considering what kind of meal prep to do, where I have a partner who's a lot more supportive, but it takes a while even for us to ask for that support, right? Again, like I said, very bio individual. This spoons theory really works for me. If there's anyone here who wants to understand specifically what they can do, I'm very happy to talk one-on-one as well. But if there's something more general as a question, we can definitely answer that. And I do feel that, as women, if we have a team, we need to provide and start creating that environment where we are having these conversations openly, where we're comfortable, talking about these things, so that our teams also start to find that kind of comfort. We are the change that we want to see, right? Okay, guys, I can't read the chat, but if there's anything, you'll just have to call out. Okay.
So we do have a question.
Can you tell how did you manage work-life balance? I don't manage work-life balance at all. Everything I do is very work-oriented. But I do have to say that following my passion, being around women also ensures that, like in many ways, my work is the kind of life I want to live. I'm super social. I do a lot of events in person, which is something I really enjoy. I'm very active, whether it's in my gym or in my sports. That's something I really enjoy. I love family time, so I'm able to manage all of that in that way. I don't do anything that I don't want to do. And it's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of guilt, getting over all of that guilt as well to come to that stage. But I don't have work-life balance that way. Everything I do is work, but my work is also my life. And it is definitely easier when you're following your passion and it becomes profitable for you. And that's, I think, a career conversation to have, which is a little separate, but being very intentional about where you spend your time, how you spend your time, who you spend your time with makes a lot of difference. And I continue to work with startups because I love the 0 to 1 journey a lot. I'm not as excited about the 1 to 10 or the 10 to 100 journey as much. So I work a lot with early stage startups. Given all of that, I'm choosing very actively over the years to do work that really excites me, that, in Marie Kondo's words, that sparks joy in my life. So it's much easier for me not to feel any guilt in missing out on things or in FOMO, all of that. Yeah, Divya said, doing what our hearts want. Yes, I do think it's absolutely true. I got married at 29 last year. We don't have kids, but we've been together for a while now. What also really helps is I do feel that the last few years that I spent just focusing on myself really helped me understand the kind of person I am, the kind of food I like to eat at home on a day-to-day basis, the kind of life I want to lead, all of that. And you're able to build that kind of optimization over time. Because I'm so data focused, I'm heavy into optimizing my life as much as possible. So that really helps. And this is not to say that I don't work out during my periods. I've got to a point where once upon a time, I wasn't able to move from the bed for 7 days a month. And now I'm working out properly on my periods because I've built my capacity and I've built my endurance over the years. So it's not something that you can do immediately. It's something you can plan for and keep working on that plan, really. So I'm 100% sure all of us here have a smartphone. There are 4 biomarkers that I'm now going to ask you to start paying attention to post this workshop. I will not be talking about eat this food because this is great. Don't eat that food because it's not. Food or any kind of input is neither good or not bad. It's very contextual. We're all women in data who understand these things much better than common people would otherwise. There are 3 ways you can test your biomarkers and pay attention to them. And I'll also explain why they're important, what they tell us about our body. First off is a health app that you can use. Your Apple will have it, your Android phones have all these health apps. Then there are wearables you can use. Watches work really well. I wear a smart ring because I'm not too fond of a watch. There's a band called Whoop that you can use if you don't like a ring and want more of a watch experience without the screen. There's also interoception, which is, has anyone heard of interoception before? Anyone here who knows what interoception means? Guys?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So we have 5 senses, right? The 5 senses of a body that we understand: touch, feel, whatever, touch, smell, sound, all of that. Interoception is the 6th sense, which is paying awareness to our body. Which, when you do meditation and they ask you to pay attention to your breath, if you're drinking water, you're able to feel something inside. If you're tightening your core, you can feel something happen here. That 6th sense where you're paying attention to how your body is performing internally is called interoception. Over the years, you can get to a place where you can experience a slight cramping for like 5 to 10 minutes during your ovulation period. So you can actually know that you have ovulated. It can get that strong over time. And this is simply about actually paying attention to our body. In very early stages, it might just look like what kind of food makes me nauseous versus not. Or am I feeling an afternoon slump after eating certain foods versus not? I think, sure, someone's asking what kind of ring do you use? Is it Gabit? Does it get in the way of lifting weights? So I use an ultra human. I do have to tell you that, look, with any kind of data device, you want to make sure that algorithmically it's the highest quality possible. I'm not too fond of the Gabits, the Lunas, and the Pebbles, all of these devices that are coming in for to capitalize on the market at cheaper rates, because I don't trust the algorithm. I'm not looking at them simply from the perspective of the scores that they're giving me behind proprietary algorithms, but I do want to ensure that they're giving me the right data. So I actually prefer the ultra human. Yes, lifting weights is slightly challenging with these. I personally practice more body weight training, running, yoga, Pilates, so I don't face that much of a problem. In case you do active strength training in that manner and you prefer a non-screen device, you can also get the Whoop band, which is now available in India. I think fantastic data there. Some other question. Okay, great. So now the 4 biomarkers that you can actually start to pay attention to. Let's start with resting heart rate. Resting heart rate basically means that at rest, which is calculated when we are sleeping, what is the basic heart rate that we have? What is the lowest heart rate that we can get to? It does increase in the second half of our cycle. It's also higher than men's comparatively. So a 29-year-old man versus a 29-year-old woman, both very healthy, will have differing heart rates. If you're a non-veg eater, it'll also be 2 or 3 points higher. All of this completely normal. If you're going through pregnancy or your postpartum or your menopausal, it'll also be slightly higher in that period. Again, completely normal. Now, why we want to pay attention to our heart rate is because it tells us about our cardiovascular health. It tells us about how much effort our heart is having to put, which has an impact on, which is impacted by the food we are eating, the kind of stress we have, our sleep, the whole thing. At this stage, if you're able to manage your resting heart rate, which we'll talk about a couple of ways to do that from a first principles perspective, you are also able to ensure that the older you get, the healthier you stay. So we're not just doing this today because our today needs to be healthier. But if, let's say, my heart rate is in the athlete zone today, there is fair reason for me to believe if I continue doing, working the way I am, that at 60, at 70, I will continue to be healthy, right? But if, let's say, it's in the above average space, which technically shouldn't be too problematic today for you, but going forward at the age of 40, 45, 60, 79, it has a worse impact. So, a lot of times when we say, oh, someone was working out and we don't know what happened because they suddenly had a cardiac arrest, all of that, it actually builds up over time. Heart health is not something that happens immediately. It takes about 10 to 15 years to build up. And your resting heart rate is a way for you to not only pay attention to it, but also capture it in advance. This is a biomarker that gets impacted immediately. You test not having alcohol one day, having alcohol the other day, and having a rager life, you will see the impact on your resting heart rate immediately. We are again not looking at day to day, we're looking at maybe monthly averages or yearly averages is the place we want to get to. But resting heart rate is one of the easiest ways to do it. Interoception wise, you will be able to actually guess it when you're in stressful situations, you've just worked out, and you experience a heightened heart rate, which is different from resting, by the way. When you experience a heightened heart rate, that is your body telling you that, I'm practicing interoception, I can experience my heart rate go higher. Your comes under below average. It's completely below average. Okay, so this is something that we 100% should be paying attention to. You can, any device that you wear measures your heart rate. Any device. We want to look at resting heart rate because that is the average. Testing for just general heart rate, the way we test pulse is very hour to hour. That's different. But resting heart rate tells us the detail. If there is a very specific concern, again, we'll speak separately, but broadly, after this slide, I will talk about, a couple of things we can start to pay attention to. Usually it's zone 2, zone 5 working out, ensuring what ring do I use? I use the ultra-human ring. Will smartwatch detect? Yes, all smartwatches detect it. Even if you have the most basic version of anything, resting heart rate is always detected. So zone 2, zone 5 workouts, yes, the kind of food we eat, our sleep hygiene, the stress levels, and how we are able to maintain and manage our stress levels as well also really helps. Now, HRV is actually the distance between two heartbeats, right? The higher our heart rate, the lower our HRV is going to be. You don't have to measure them separately, but it can add just more context. If you just focus on improving your heart rate, your HRV will start to increase, which is a great thing for us to have. It means that our heart doesn't have to put in as much effort to supply blood to the rest of the body as it would have otherwise. So it's actually, we're creating a conducive environment for our heart to work, right? Then there's basal body temperature. If you're looking at pregnancy, really helpful. If you're perimenopausal or menopausal, you really want to pay attention to this. If you have night sweats or hot flashes in the second phase of your cycle, you feel a lot more heated up, or you feel confused temperatures in the second phase of your cycle, your basal body temperature can actually help you understand if your body is working properly or not. Then there's sleep quality. I think sleep is the one thing that all of us skimp on, thinking that it's not as important. We'll work on 6 hours, we'll work on 5 hours. It's okay if we're not feeling fresh. We'll just pop in a quick cup of strong coffee and be done. But this is where our body recovers. This is where our brain recovers. This is where the cleaning, detoxification of our body happens. So if we're actually not paying attention to our sleep quality, it is a building block to future health concerns, because this is really the housekeeping for health. As simple as that. Again, like, completely, if some of you are already tracking it, completely normal for the first half of your cycle to have deeper REM sleep without kind of paying attention to sleep hygiene. There are chances of disrupted sleep in the second half, especially if some of you experience insomnia, work really late at night, or have a lot of tech work that needs to happen late at night. And we can talk about, individual situations accordingly. Sharmishta shared the ultra-human ring. Yes. Everyone with me so far, right? Or is this too much? Or too less? I hope it's not too less though.
No, I think you're doing great.
I think this is great because it's just the right amount of health and tech for even those that don't understand either. And I think it's also bringing attention to things we need to know, right? Because there's just so much clutter out there when it comes to this whole context and construct, that this is super helpful. So keep going. And it's lovely listening to you. You're such a phenomenal presence on screen. So
thank you.
Go ahead, Aruna. Lovely listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Got it. So a couple of first principles across calories, food options, rest, and movement. Again, all of this is bio-individual. So do practice that awareness. If you are working with a nutritionist, a doctor, fitness trainer, use these insights to ask them about the plans that they have created for you. Are you able to understand them or not? Are they holistic truly or not? And holistic obviously does not mean that we give away medicine and only look at alternative forms of healing. Holistic means a complete focus. So when it comes to calories in, if any of you are practicing intermittent fasting for gut health, for weight management, improved digestion, everything we are talking about, by the way, if you're following a healthy lifestyle, your body will come to its ideal body weight. Weight is not something I concern myself on for any of my clients. We see that happen as a byproduct. But what we wanted to see is long-term health, so that that weight that's shed off doesn't come back, the obesity that's shed off doesn't come back. We're not just looking at symptoms. You want to practice intermittent fasting safely, which is to say, don't do as stringent IF in the second half of your cycle as you do in the first half. Your body does need more calories at that time. The kind of requirement is also different. When it comes to protein, blanket 1.2 to 2.2 grams of protein into your ideal body weight. 2.2 is this higher level for athletes, for somebody with a very, very active, physically active lifestyle. 1.2 to 1.5 is a great place to start if you're looking at, figuring out higher energy, better improvement in fatigue levels. You're looking at maintaining body weight. You're looking at reducing body weight as well. So that is the kind of focus that we wanted to have. When it comes to food options, in general, obviously look at bio individually, what's supportive in case you have thyroid. Some of these might have some complications there, but broadly the idea is we definitely ensure improved follicular and ovulatory fibers in those two phases. The reason for this is that it helps optimize for estrogen production. The better estrogen that we have at the right levels, the better the rest of our hormones work. Very, very easy to do. An input like this. It also helps with gut health. It also helps with poop, which is a sign of our body digesting well. One thing that you can look at considering is prioritizing warmer foods compared to colder foods in your late luteal phase. It helps keep the body temperature in balance. Otherwise, it's just too much contrasting temperature, which is also why for a lot of my clients, I completely confirm that they are not doing any cold water therapy in the second half of their cycle to maintain that basal body temperature. Cold water therapy is something we recommend in the first half of the cycle in the case of women. You want to minimize caffeine dependence during late luteal phase, especially if you have cramping or other PMS situations. To be clear, there is no confirmed Western science on this. There is no research that says that caffeine will lead to more cramps or has a direct impact on PMS symptoms. But there is enough anecdotal evidence and Eastern wisdom to say that there are linkages. There is a smarter way to have coffee to help you. I love coffee, but there's a way to have it so that it actually helps you be more productive rather than less. And we'll talk about this quickly in a bit. Hydrate. At all times, you need to hydrate. I hope all of you have a bottle of water next to you. There's obviously bio-individual supplementation. I do recommend supplementation only when, you have your basics ready. So like you've done the 80% of work already, you've got your food options, all of that ready. And only after that, you're going into supplementation. An easy way or an easy fix is also to start looking at what is a healthier alternative to whatever is my favorite, right? Instead of saying, I'm just going to blanket, completely give away everything I love and just focus on things I don't like too much, but society tells me is healthy. That's not how it's supposed to work. We want to make our life more sustainable, our health lifestyle more sustainable. So let's find healthier alternatives to our favorites. When it comes to rest, there's 7 different types of rest. It was surprising for me as well when I found out. But what happens when, in cases of, let's say, burnout, is that despite how much ever we are sleeping, we may not be as recovered, we may not be as energized. And that's because other forms of rest are not part of our life. So there's physical, mental, emotional, sensory, creative, social. And we wanted to consider and see, are we able to integrate all of these into our lifestyles over a period of time? We want to obviously practice sleep hygiene and consider data-driven biomarkers to help us. When it comes to movement, a lot of us think exercise is movement. It is not. I've been standing here for this workshop. I have a standing desk at home as well. So even when I'm speaking to people or working through the day, I lead an active lifestyle, or I'm taking walking meetings, or I'm taking stairs over elevators. Very simple, quick fixes that you can start with if you don't have a particularly active lifestyle otherwise. Very highly recommend. Over the years, to look at mobility, which is our flexibility, our strength, our just the way we move, the ensuring that our joints are not stuck, especially for those of us who sit for very long hours. We might have hunched necks, we might have tough wrists as well. When it comes to strength training, it doesn't just have to mean lifting weights. You can start with core strength training that starts with Pilates, starts with strong yoga. Over time, once you've built that strength, you can move to body weight training as well. What you want to, from a data perspective, prioritize is ensuring over the years zone 2 and zone 5 training. Zone 2 trainings and zone 5 training both help with resting heart rate management. Along with that, breath work incorporation, whether it's, alternate nostril breathing or it's some form of, deepening our breath and paying attention to it. All of that not only helps us manage our heart rate in the short term, but in the long run, then further helps us, manage stress better, manage our heart rates over the years better, improve our focus and productivity, all of that. Feel time for questions on this, but we can just quickly check. Great. Someone's asking how to check the estrogen levels personally without finding the estrogen levels in blood reports. There's actually no way to particularly do that, regardless of what social media says. You have to have blood reports to do that. And also, it's not something that you can test out and understand in one go itself. You need at least 3 cycles of your periods and having tested out in those 3 cycles to understand. What does happen is, like, there are some signs of estrogen dominance and low estrogen levels in the body, but they're not particularly scientifically proven. So for that reason, I don't want to particularly say this is one way to ensure that, your estrogen is high, your estrogen low is low. On social media, there's also this trend of, high cortisol, do this to lower your cortisol. None of our hormones work in isolation with the other. It's a complex machinery, but it's also beautifully orchestrated machinery. It's not like one hormone being high or low would change. Can I recommend any good smartwatch? I think Apple is pretty decent if you're using Apple. That works very well. If you're not, then Whoop could work in case you don't want a screen again. But broadly, I think just this, when it comes to data, I would very highly recommend investing rather than skimping. Reason being that the right data can make or break things for us. What also happens is that when we start to outsource our body awareness to other devices like these, it can get messy. So we want to ensure they're as trustworthy as possible. I'm not saying they'll be 100% right or there'll be nothing that is not wrong with them, but at least they are much better than the others. They are better research. They have maybe an expert panel behind them looking at algorithms. Even though they're proprietary, it's still easier for me to trust some of these better. Guys, you are also free to, by the way, unmute yourself. Otherwise, I feel like I'm talking to myself. And when I say others, I mean people other than Karen, Shreya, and Arushi. And maybe Nikita also.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, we always sort of, hover over that conversation. So would love to have others also, switch on their cameras if you could.
Yeah.
I'm on the road, so I'm not able to, but if anybody can, it'd be lovely for everyone to see your faces and so.
Okay. Cool. Now, quick caveat here. I know for many of us, those of us are looking at intermittent fasting, who are looking at keto diets, or maybe who have, especially from the perspective of weight management or just being really busy and not having time to have breakfast, we might easily skip on it. We want to also pay attention to the fact that breakfast actually set the tone for the day. And when I say breakfast, I don't mean eat as soon as you're up. I mean the first meal of the day. You want to ensure it's a complete meal. You're following it on my plate method. Much easier to optimize and pre-plan for it. Arshi, got your message. For caffeine, I'm going to quickly touch upon this. Can have longer conversations on this. Caffeine is a great stimulant to increase productivity, but we have it the wrong way. The right way to have caffeine is at least 90 to 120 minutes after waking up. That is the time when our cortisol in the morning naturally starts to dip. So we want to have that benefit. If some of you are having it for pre-workout, that's a different ballgame altogether because there are other kinds of food interactions that need to be focused on. What you want to ensure with caffeine is that you're not having it on an empty stomach, otherwise it will lead to more fatigue. What happens with caffeine is it increases your cortisol so that you have more energy, you feel more productivity, but it also causes a crash. It's also a diuretic, so it causes more dehydration in the body, which is why you want to make sure you hydrate yourself adequately. There's a gene called CYP1A2, which determines how fast or how slow we metabolize coffee. For those of us who are fast metabolizers, we might have a coffee at 4, 5, 6 and feel completely okay and go to sleep well. For many of us, even if we have it after 2 p.m., sleeping at 10 p.m. proves to be a challenge. You want to pay attention to this. Do not cross 400 milligrams of coffee in a day. For pregnant women, it's even lesser. This is the FDA approved aspects. If you do use coffee during the day for energy, to prevent afternoon slumps, we do have a solution for that. Quick question, and I do want others to tell me, 2 pictures of dal chawal here. Which one do you think is healthier?
The one on the right.
Second one.
Why do you say that?
Second one.
Because it
Because
has
it has vegetables.
portions of green vegetable, dal, and then rice. Protein and then carbohydrates.
Including all the
There's a device called CGM, or a continuous glucose monitor, which can help you understand how your body responds to food. If you're just having, let's say, dal, chawal, salad, little bit, and not in the right order, your glucose rises and then it suddenly crashes. The afternoon slumps are also a lot because we have a lot more carbs in the afternoon than we have our actual protein. I'm just using this as an example. Think back to how you eat and what you eat. If you don't have awareness of this, for the next couple of days, look at your lunches and see if you can understand these things. A better way to ensure balance and a sustained glucose response, which will prevent our afternoon slump, is to ensure you start your food with fiber, plant like all through the meals. Start your food with fiber, have an adequate protein option, then have your carb option, which is comparatively lesser in quantity, but have a 15 to 20-minute walk after each meal. What that does, it helps you manage your glucose responses. So the slumps that you experience in the evening, for which you need your caffeine or you need a quick fix, do not happen. These slumps also lead to more snacking needs in the evening. Because through the day, our glucose has been crashing over time. Our body has lost out on a lot of energy. There is a way to test this. This is not to say that all carbs work for everyone. The whole reason why we do the CGM testing is to understand what kind of carbohydrates work for each different person, what cause higher spikes, what cause lower spikes, etc. So you want to ensure that I know a traditional way of thinking is have a light dinner, have a heavier lunch. But for many of us, once you start doing these tests, you'll actually start to realize, like in my case, a heavier lunch and a heavier dinner and a lighter lunch work much better for my sleep and my energy. Again, this is bio-individual. Anything you see on social media, you need to ask yourself if it will help you hit your health goals or not. This is a 14-day test. Each CGM lasts for 14 days. It's used by diabetics a lot, but there's a way for us to use this data to understand and preemptively live a healthier life. Someone asked me what the My Plate method is. I'm going to quickly share this. So blanket, if you look at the top half, the order of food that prevents slump and eases digestion, eases bloating is start with fiber, ensure a protein, have carbs, and ensure healthy fats are part of this. Definitely, easiest way to get your active day in is a 15-minute, 20-minute active walk post a meal. I'm not saying the slow strolling walk. I'm saying a little more active walk. This can also be you on phone and, taking your meetings there. If you want to take a screenshot, please feel free to do that. On the left side, the 2 plates that you see are focused on minimal activity. So if you don't work out too much, if you don't have a lot of movement, let's start to get to a place where we're having 5,000, 6,000 steps a day. Very easy to do that if you're working for 15 to 20 minutes after each meal. That's already about 45 minutes to 1 hour of walking through the day. It's okay for it to be divided. And then using your hand measurements, you can actually look at what a balanced plate looks like for you. If everything is completely fine, you just want to look at, a healthier alternative. On the right side, the one in the middle is what you want to start with. So, that will help you understand how much protein to have, how much veggies to have, how much carbs you can look at, how much fats you can look at. This is not the same for everybody. All of us have different health goals. For example, I'm in the on the right side, the lowermost, because I'm looking at gaining muscle and increasing my overall body weight for a certain health goal of mine. Maybe for yours is that you want to lose fat and overall body weight, but you're pretty active. So you go for a different option. This is not, all foods are important, by the way. There's nothing in the short term. Maybe you look at, doing a FODMAP, which is skipping on a few foods to see what works better, what doesn't. In the long run, we need all kinds of food components to be part of our plate for us to actually be healthy. They're there for a reason, right? All of this, again, very bio-individual, very, very specific to our health goals, the kind of time we can invest, the kind of resources we can invest as well. Being healthy is a matter of privilege. So there's no one way to be healthy, and we shouldn't shame ourselves or others in that. Does this answer your question? Somebody had asked what the my plate method looks like. Does this answer? Okay, Karen had asked. Great. Okay, one quick thing, because we are talking about the CGM, is that if you feel more exhausted, feel more snacky, need more carbs in the second half of your cycle, it actually has a scientifically backed reason for it. Our insulin resistance is higher in the second half of our cycle, which is why for many of us, we might see more acne coming in. In case you have any kind of inflammation in the body, you have a lot more cravings and, just like that feeling that nothing you eat can satisfy you. A CGM experiment really works. Scientifically, what happens is that in the first half of our cycle, because of estrogen rising, our insulin sensitivity is higher. So we are able to manage our glucose responses better. In the second half, because of falling in estrogen, our insulin resistance is much higher, which is what causes higher spikes or sharper spikes in our glucose and insulin regulation as well. So just a quick note on that, in case you find yourself in any space, where you're experiencing a lot of inflammation in the body, you're pre-diabetic, or you have diabetes, or, there's insane cravings, you have a family history of any of these metabolic health disorders, very, very helpful to do a CGM analysis so that you can start to fix the way you fuel up properly. Everyone with me so far, right? Great, thanks, Gayatri. Thanks, Vijayta. Okay.
Yes.
When we talk of, health, we don't talk of brain health enough, and I don't understand why, because that is the big boss that drives all of our machinery. The faster our brain deteriorates, the faster our physical body will deteriorate, the faster our productivity will go down. So it's extremely important for us to start focusing on this. Couple of thoughts. Like I said, sleep is the housekeeping. No matter what you do, if you're not sleeping well, it's not going to lead to weight loss. It won't lead to, improved productivity. None of that's going to happen without adequate sleep. And when I say adequate, I mean test it out, see how much deep and REM sleep you have. This is not to say that, oh, I slept for 8 hours, but I kept waking up through the night. Doesn't work like that. You want to test it out and see if biomarker wise you're having adequate healthy sleep or not. You want to have 20 to 25% of REM sleep at least for it to actually work on recovering and restoring your body to its optimal best for the next day. The next thing that you do is focus on your food and movement. The third thing, and just quick thoughts on this, blanket, alcohol, nicotine, any other drugs do have a negative impact on the brain. Nicotine, 100%, there is nothing to say that nicotine works. I'm somebody who loves alcohol. I'll be very honest with that. And I think for me, it works really well because I don't overdo it. I don't drink too much. In fact, I'm on 102 days or 103 days of not having had a drink at all right now in the last couple of months. It does help in the sense of, make us socially a little more comfortable. So be aware of that. You will notice, your resting heart rate differ. If you're having it socially, very different from you raging and getting wasted all the time, because it does have a negative impact on the brain. So pay attention to that. Other drugs like, and controversial, but CBD, hash, weed, taken the right way, have shown an wisdom to have positive impacts on the brain have also been used for neurodegenerative disorders, but we don't have regulations or FDA approvals around it. So do exercise that caution there. When it comes to mental gym, we focus so much on, our physical exercise, but we don't exercise our brains too much. There are three things to consider for the mental gym that you build up. One is neurotransmission, which is how we are fueling up and is that supporting our brain health or not. You'll find all these brain boosting foods lists. Again, very bio individual. The hormones that you want to pay attention to, or the neurotransmitters that you want to pay attention to, are glutamate, GABA, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. If any of this is imbalanced, it can lead to mood disorders, it can lead to anxiety disorders, it can lead to neurodegenerative disorders. So whatever mental gym you prepare starts, like we discussed, with the food we eat, with the way we are fueling our body. The next thing is neuroplasticity, or our vagus nerve. The way to test this is look at your heart rate, digestion, respiratory function. Vagus nerve is what gets stimulated when we are under insane stress, and it helps us build our stress response and stress resilience. Neurogenesis is the third and the final leg of your mental gym, which is exposure to hormetic stress. Now, there's something called distress and something called eustress. Eustress actually helps our body build that resilience over time, which is, us pushing ourselves slowly and steadily out of our comfort zone to build our strength. It has an impact via genetics, but majorly lifestyle and environmental factors. Now, when I say genetic, a lot of us, operate under the understanding that if something happened to our parents or is part of our genes, we have to continue with that. That is going to be part of our life. That's categorically untrue. There's a study field in science called epigenetics, which studies how our DNA changes. It takes about 7 years for you to completely eliminate your genetic tendency because of cell turnover, changes in your body. So if you are able to follow a healthier lifestyle consistently for a 7-year period, you are able to then not only not pass it on to the next generation if you choose to have kids, but you're also able to prevent it from happening to you. There. How can we measure these? Which ones? The hormones you can measure via blood tests. That's the best way to do this. There are also saliva-based tests, but they're not as accurate in India right now. One very interesting thing, in case you do have family history and you want to pay attention to, is there's a company called Map My Genome, which does genetic testing. So you can get an early understanding of what kind of genetic factors have a positive versus negative impact. And given that, what kind of medicinal formulations can work for you versus not work for you. So there's a lot of data that you can get into from there. If there's any specific thing that you have a question on, Sharmishta, please feel free to send that in. And if it's, in the interest of the entire community, I'll answer that here. Otherwise, we'll take it up separately.
That'll be great. I'm just sharing the link here. Just let me know if this is the one that you're referring to, Map My Genome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Map My Genome is also founded by a woman entrepreneur who's extremely passionate about this. And
fantastic product, fantastic research. The work that they do is really, really good. I think there are obviously a lot of companies in India doing similar work, but I find their work to be the most efficient and effective. Now we've, spoken about so much. I'm sure all of you are also, very active on social media, reading all of these articles and news and influencers and nutritionists, etc. By the way, all of us nutritionists to talk about a specific product get paid to do that, regardless of whether we're speaking about the brand or not. So this is not to say that all of it is going to work for everybody. There's a lot of business that goes behind. If you are building your wellness blueprint, this is how I would recommend you look at building it up step by step. Look at the basics. Get your sleep, fueling, movement, emotional regulation in place. That is 80% of the work done for you already. It is also important for us to consider what we can reasonably do. It is a matter of great privilege, to choose to have organic food all the time, or choose to have healthy, fresh food all the time and not have processed food at all. So at no point am I going to tell you that, just spend more money and you're going to be healthy. That's not how it works. We want to exercise the right kind of intention and mindfulness in all our decisions. Once you've got the basics right, then you can look at supplements, you can look at tools, you can look at environmental regulation. Environmental regulation can also mean something as simple as getting an air purifier at home. so that you're breathing in better air, which has an impact on the way you sleep. It has an impact on your cardiovascular health because your heart doesn't have to do as much effort in pumping blood, given that it's breathing in, our body's breathing in clean air. But you do just that and you don't eat well, isn't going to work. Once you're done with all that is when you can look at all this trendy biohacking stuff that you keep seeing, this cold shower therapy, red light, photomodulation, all of this, great things, but they don't work in isolation. It's just, they just look great and are great for social media and for that social currency. But health is actually really, really boring. You have to do the right healthy thing day in and day out. And that habit building is, the most important thing. So I want to leave you with 5 quick ideas on how you can look at it, right? If you are having ultra processed foods, forget whole foods, forget organic. Just focus on, can you move to processed foods from ultra processed to processed? There's nothing wrong with it per se. It's a matter of, again, access, privilege, cost, all of that in terms of what we can reasonably afford, not just from a money perspective, but also from a time perspective. Especially, for families where maternal labor is so high, where the woman has to cook, ya garam roti hi khani hai. I'm always left wondering, where is the woman getting her garam roti from? So practice that kind of awareness, right? If you're having processed foods, can you move to processed culinary ingredients and, create that food option for yourself? Can you then later move to unprocessed whole foods or minimally processed foods? But this is a matter of, step by step moving to that. There we need to focus on it as a ladder there. Another upgrade that you can make is upgrading staples to seasonal availability, which is, let's say, the oils that we are having. Can we have the right oils for the season that we are in? If we are having a lot of roti, chawal, can we have the right ones for the season? If not, then obviously, we follow what is possible. But this is one way to, get the basics in place. When we look at mindful productivity, we looked at our cycles. Can we look at, where we need more rest, where we need less rest, what needs more of our attention at any given time? Can we learn how to say no? And can we learn how to say an active yes to things that would really move the needle for us? Would be great. For snacking, dry fruits, healthier snacking alternatives. Again, everything in moderation. If you have obesity, if you already have pre-diabetes, then fruits is also something that has, sugars in them. So we want to test that out with a CGM. But broadly, can we look at these things as healthier options? Oils, what is the quantity we're using? Are we using kachi ghani oil? Are we using cold pressed? Are we using wood pressed? All of that make a lot of difference. But broadly, if you notice all of these, the first principle in each one of these is, what is that one better choice I can make today? You do it enough number of times for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you will see your life transform completely. There is no quick fix. Anybody who tells you that, you can lose X kgs in 2 months, 3 months is capitalizing on that fear, and you might lose that weight. The challenge is it going to stay off? And is it a healthy way to lose that weight or not? Is the key question here, because what we don't want to do is achieve our short-term goal today, but forget about the long-term goal we have in the future. I know, okay, someone's asked, I know I'm consuming less protein than needed and it's difficult for me to have it in my daily meals because of my lifestyle. I'm vegetarian and live in a PG for context. Thinking of getting protein powder, would you recommend it? If you do, then please let me know which one. I'm a non-vegetarian and I still have my protein powder every day because I hit about 110, 120 grams of protein on a day-to-day basis. What protein powder you want to get depends on a couple of things: your weight tolerance, and the amount you are able to comfortably spend, because protein powders are expensive. What you want to check, and I'm happy to recommend options, but please study and see which one works best for you, is check the PDCAS score, which determines protein digestibility in the body. Plant protein individually have a 0.6 to 0.8 on 1 PDCAS. Animal protein and whey protein have 1 on 1. So they are much better. But if you have a whey intolerance or you want to minimize whey, you have inflammation in the body, you have thyroid, then you might go for a plant protein or a fermented yeast protein. In case of plant protein, look for something that has pea and rice proteins mixed in it. So, something like a Net Life would be great. Cosmix is a great option there. When it comes to whey protein which is called Optimum Nutrition, is a great brand. Very clean, little expensive. So if you want to make it a little more affordable for yourself, and I'm saying this given that you're staying in a PG, so just doing some 2+2 there, you can also look at the whole truth. Multiple different combinations there. Most of these have samplers and tasters, so please get something that you also like the taste of. There's nothing wrong with it. But definitely look at things that don't have any unnecessary additives. Like they will have a preservative. It is important for the product to, sustain itself and not deteriorate over the next couple of years or months at least. They will have some or the other sweetener to improve the taste. So you want to see if they have a monk fruit, they have a sucralose, they have an erythritol, they have a stevia, and see what works best for you. So broadly, like take this into account when you're looking at getting your protein. Sharmisha, are you a non-vegetarian? Are you a vegetarian as well? You're from Kolkata.
I'm a vegetarian, yeah. So I was just looking at some of your recommendations. If you could kindly repeat those, that'd be great, Aruna.
Cosmates, The Whole Truth, Optimum Nutrition.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Great. So, guys, we are at the end of the presentation. I think, Arushi, I have about 25 more minutes for question and answers, right?
Absolutely.
Great. So we have adequate time. You can follow me on Instagram, YouTube. You can also check my TopMate in case you want to, block any time with me, get one on one of my calls. I have a course called Lazy Girl's Guide to Nervous System Regulation. It's a DIY course. There's a discount code just for today's workshop for people who did choose to spend their Saturday morning with me. But we can spend the next couple of minutes just having a discussion, answering questions, sharing feedback, experiences, the whole thing.
A lot of thanks, a lot of
Thank
great
you.
feedback in the
You can
chat.
also unmute yourself and thank me, right?
Hey, thank you very much. It was really informative. So I have never thought in that perspective that the mental gym, what you said, all the terms, what you gave are really superb. So we have to not only think in the perspective of eating, but we have to think also the mental gym kind of things.
Yeah.
What we usually have. all the women face it very fast than men, I would say. And it was very nice. It was very nice, Aruna. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vijayta, what's the one takeaway you're taking in? What's the one change you're going to make today? Onwards.
I like the mental gym. The portion I try to do, the food plate, but more of the green vegetables I'm adding because I work and then I have a lot of bleeding also. So my periods are intense, very intense.
Okay. Yeah. And fiber will definitely help.
Yeah. Hopefully. I'm taking also the lifelong medicine for something, but I'm still trying for the answer. Can I solve this problem? I don't know what's it.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aruna. I just checked out your TopMate link. Thanks a lot for doing this. Education around women health is important for women for sure, and it's surprising how many women are still not aware of it. But then you can consider what it is for men, because when I told my husband about menopause, he was like, "What's that?" Right? He kind of has an idea, but I'm like, I'm hitting it soon, so you should know.
Absolutely, I don't think we teach our men enough. It's just very difficult for them to talk about, understand all of that. And having said that, we don't have adequate research on female health, by the way. It's only 1991 in the US that, like 1986, when the bill was passed for women to be included in clinical trials, and 91 when women started to actually be included. So all these medications that we have today, COVID was not tested on women or pregnant women at all. Women in the reproductive ages are not part of clinical testing.
Any research,
anyway,
which is so sad.
We don't have adequate research. A lot of it, what we have is anecdotal that gets built into other forms. That's one. The second is that when you look at Eastern wisdom versus Western sciences,
I was just going to say that
Western science focuses on the disease, Eastern science focuses on the body. It's very hard for any of us practitioners to have controlled data sets when it comes to Eastern sciences, which works in a lot of cases actually. Like for a lot of us, and given that we are South Asians, we don't have adequate research on the South Asian female body. For example, you get weight gain and weight loss. South Asian women host the maximum amount of weight or extra fat in their bellies and their hips. But Scandinavian women, where cold water therapy has been used to talk about, weight loss, actually host all their fat across their body because of the climate that they live in. Very, very different for us to look at these things. And if you're not paying attention to data at a granular level, then it gets very hard for us to see results faster as well.
That's true. Absolutely. More so for Indian women,
Yeah.
considering the population. Great. Thank you so much. I'd
Of
like to
course.
personally thank you for this.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Armishta. Guys, I'm having my dry fruits as we speak.
Honestly, I've seen you sipping on water, and like such a good example,
I
by
have
the
a
way.
lot of water. I drink a lot of water.
Any other questions?
Guys, questions, thoughts, feedback, anything works.
I mean, on a personal
Just
level,
use that.
I have also learned quite a bit from the session.
Thank
I
you.
did not know that there were so many factors affecting people's health, or like personally, even the whole stuff about menstrual cycle and all. That's definitely a first for me. So I've learned quite a bit, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I thought maybe an ice bath will fix everything for me, but I guess not. So that's what I've taken away.
Arushi, sometimes that helps too with the stress. So a nice
Okay,
pampering bath.
Yeah.
done.
Hi,
Yes,
this is
Shraddha.
Shweta.
Yes, Shweta.
Yeah, Adna, thank you for this a very informative session. I am 16 months postpartum,
Okay.
and I am someone who has been working out for many years. I
Hmm.
used to do yoga, and then I shifted to proper, proper workout in the terms of strength training, and I go to the gym also. My
Hmm.
husband is also a gym rat, because of
Okay.
which we work out together. That happens for sure. So 5 days a week we work out. But what I've seen is, and I'm not talking from a vanity point of view, but just to understand my body better, I feel that it's become difficult to lose weight in general postpartum.
Yeah.
And but I'm hungry all the time because I'm still breastfeeding my daughter.
Hmm.
So sometimes while I can stay through the day, somehow I manage and keep healthy snack options, all that. By 5 o'clock, I just want to binge. Like I just want to eat something. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeding a child. I'm also postpartum. I just give like these excuses to myself, and I do this way too often than I'm supposed to. So I don't know, my question probably, if I had to ask, is it actually tougher to lose weight postpartum? Is that a given? Will I have to work harder? And again, like I said, I'm doing a more of strength training. So the deadlifts, and that is how I'm trying to lose weight. I do cardio maybe once a week.
Hmm. Okay. So first of all, I think let's practice more kindness towards our body. It's given birth. It's a big
Yeah, no,
puppy.
absolutely. I agree with you. And I feel like, one is being kind is okay. Two is sometimes I feel I just rationalize. I just use that as my excuse. So
It's
that's
not a
where I
bad
want to
thing.
catch myself from
Yeah.
doing that.
No, it's not a bad thing. Actually, postpartum, it takes about 18 months for our body to
Okay.
get into, baseline where we can start to look at recovery per se.
Okay.
So you're already 2 months away from that. You've not even hit that. Second, you're
Right.
already breastfeeding. In most cases, women stop breastfeeding that soon, especially in the day and age we live in today, which is
Yeah.
actually much healthier for you to continue to breastfeed.
Okay.
Fair to be fair. Quick fixes that you can look at, and I'll get into, just the losing weight timelines part in a bit. Is
Sure.
one, look at heavier protein-rich breakfast because they will prevent the snacking by the end of the day. If you've fed your body properly and you've energized yourself in the morning properly, the
Okay.
afternoon slump and that snacking need reduces.
Yeah.
Lack of protein, and pay attention to the lunch that you're having. That's one.
Okay.
Two,
Okay.
if you look at weight loss in general, if men take 3 months to lose a certain amount of weight, women take 6 to 8 months to do the same because
Okay.
cycles work differently, right? So it
Hmm.
is slower comparatively, we catch up eventually.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Weight loss happens with zone 2 training, not zone 5 training. Running
Mhm.
or cardio of any form is zone 5 training. You need that for heart health. You don't need that for weight loss.
Okay.
Sustained weight loss. Strength training helps. What will also help is core fitness. So things like Pilates that
Okay.
bring your heart rate down, that bring you that kind of comfort. Your heart rate comes down, your body is not packing up on as much fat. It's feeling that it's safe, it can let go.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Slower comparatively, definitely it's a great thing that you're already paying attention to this, because what happens with weight gained during pregnancies is if we don't pay attention, then 18 to 20 years down the line, obesity chances are much higher because of that. So great thing that you're already paying attention to it. It definitely takes longer. Our body also is recovering. So right now, the idea for another 2 months maybe is going to be to stay healthy, stay in the course of that habit. Eventually, as you look at weight loss or getting back into shape, I would say, getting to your ideal body weight, which may not be the same in pregnancy. You want to look at zone 2 training more adequately, more core work.
Okay.
The right kind of food options, which is again super bio individual, but higher protein for sure.
Okay. Okay. And also quickly, I do intermittent fasting from 7 p.m. to 11 a.m., which would mean my breakfast is only after 11 and therefore lunch is maybe after 3. Is that too late for lunch?
Yeah, no, it's not about lunch. It's I do feel personally that it's a lot of intermittent fasting for you, even if you're able to do a 12-12 decently through the month, that's much better. It'll show you better results as well.
12-12, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Intermittent fasting does not have to be as stringent. It's again male body specific or post menopause is when you
Okay.
16 to 16-8.
Right. Okay.
You can all, and it's completely fine to think of, let's say in the first half of your cycle you're able to do 12-12, but in the second half it gets a little difficult. So work with your body that way. You don't have to push your body that much. Just because it's harder does not mean it's better for us.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good reminder. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Aruna.
Of course. A couple of folks are asking about extra vitamins and tonics. And like fish oil, this, that. Again, like I said, I do take many of them, but that's also because my basics are right. It also depends on what you're not able to get from your diet at all. So that's important. Plus, not all of them are supposed to be taken forever. There's toxicity that can happen. So we want to look at those things as well. It's also much better to be in a place where we can invest in high quality supplements rather than getting supplements for the sake of it, which are not as high quality because they lead to more harm than good. Having said that, again, super bio individual, happy to take this conversation offline, one-on-one as well, to tell you what specifically you want to do. Sheetal asks for fibroids. Sheetal, super specific. There is no right or wrong answer to this. Happy to take this offline because it's very, very bio individual. Stress management, functional freeze. Karen, actually, my course on Lazy Girl's Guide to Nervous System Regulation actually looks at the polyvagal theory, how you want to look at biomarkers for these and what kind of holistic health protocols you want to follow. So I'd recommend you check that out.
Sure.
You want to look at, for both the questions on stress, stress is not just mental, it's also physical. So you want to look at different types of rest, yes. But you also want to look at the way you're fueling up, how your menstrual cycle is operating, your sleep, the kind of breath work you're working on, your personal care, the movement that you're doing. All of that holistically needs to come together for you to be able to not just manage stress in the short term, but also build your resilience in the long term. You do tend to eat more food. That's because our bodies feels like, think about it from an evolutionary perspective, right? Our bodies are designed to prevent danger, to prevent us from being harmed. Today's stress looks very different from a tiger coming in and trying to eat us. Or a famine happening. Today's stress is constantly pinging notifications, deadlines that are arbitrary, or just those kinds of things, right? Our body doesn't know the difference really. So when we're under stress, there are two things that can happen. If you are in the fight or flight state, your hunger might go up because your body is trying to pack up on all the nutrients because it feels like we don't know when we'll get food next, which is also what happens in cases of eating disorders or very stringent intermittent fasting, where our bodies end up packing a lot more weight versus not. On my YouTube, I've got 2 playlists on this, one on intermittent fasting and one on weight loss for women. So do check that out for more detailed understanding of that. In the freeze state, our appetite actually completely diminishes because our body has stopped all necessary functions, which is why libido will go down. Our heart rate will be much, much lower than it'll be higher compared to the fight or flight state, because the body's idea is we are under danger. We need to fight this. We'll figure everything out later. So one, completely normal to feel like that, but not okay to continue to, let up to, or just not okay to continue to think it's okay if it's going on like that. We want to preemptively work on that and solve that in the long term as well for ourselves. What kind of food do I suggest? high protein in the morning. Pay attention to your afternoon slumps. Keep healthier alternatives. It's not a bad thing to want to eat food. Like, food is there to give us that joy. We just have to figure out what's the best way for us to eat. The food itself is not good or bad, right? Just, it's much better to have a pizza that makes you really happy than eat 5-day-old food that was made at home, etc. So it's so contextual in all of that, and we want to practice that awareness. There's no absolutism in this at all. Any specific advice for perimenopausal women? I think we can take that separately as well, but broadly, again, from a biomarker level, your estrogen is going to fall. So you want to look at better calcium in the body and seeing how you can support yourself. What happens is, when we are on our periods or when we are post-menopause, that is when we are the same as men. Which, if we're not, and I always think about this, if we are not allowed to be functioning, or we think, we're at not our best capacity, men are like that all the damn time. Our body mimics that of men hormonally when we are on our periods or when we are in menopause. So technically, women in menopause are the best suited for running office, because there is no way that kind of hormonal disruption happens. And we're also much better with anger management and all of that, which I don't think most of these men are. Having said that, post-menopause, because of that estrogen falling, and in case you have family history of osteoporosis, anything to do with bone health, there are higher chances of our bone health declining. So those are things to pay attention to. If any of us have had a hysterectomy here, which is the removal of our uterus, or any other form of, removal of ovaries, fallopian tubes, all of that, we want to pay attention, because post-menopause, our bone health deteriorates faster and dementia has higher chances of hitting. So just sharing this, not to scare you, but to tell you that these are possibilities if we don't pay attention. I think we have adequate time now with this session to start paying attention to these things. Thank you. Shanu's asking, on topic of calcium, is milk truly bad? Milk is not the only source of calcium, and milk is not bad at all. Some of us do have lactose intolerances because of our gut health. It's also completely normal for, over time, our body to lose out on lactase enzymes, which help us digest milk. In that case, you can always choose to have lactose-free milk, which, like, just as an example, Amul has a lactose-free milk. You can have other dairy products that are fermented. In case you don't have any lactase enzyme at all in your body, then you can also choose to have other forms of nut-based milk. But calcium, again, is not just from milk. It's also from multiple other sources. And by itself, it doesn't, there is no one food that is good or bad. I don't have milk. I have lactose-free milk because it doesn't suit me as much. But there was a point where I couldn't have cheese or curd or any of this. Gut health, unless you have an allergy, in cases of intolerances, it's able to be sorted. How to take care of mental health post-menopause? I think super contextual, right? What is causing harm to mental health is the first thing to pay attention to. Is it physical? Is it more relationship focused? Is it career? Is it children? Very, very contextual there. I'm sure therapists can help. I'm sure community can also help a lot. I very, very much believe in the power of community, especially women-led communities. I hate saying girl gang. And I have to tell you that this Lazy Girls Guide to Nervous System Regulation, I hate the name, because I hate calling ourselves girls and girl gang. I just find that infantilization very problematic. But my course doesn't sell if I say it's for adult women for some reason. Yeah, so I think, like, very contextual there, but again, like, happy to chat.
I've shared Aruna's social media links in the chat in case anyone wants to check out her YouTube or Instagram. I'm assuming there's more content there as well.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for showing up as well. Thanks, Shanu.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. This was such a lovely session. Thank you, Aruna. Thank you, Arushi, for curating this. I think, we need to have this conversation a lot more. Maybe a good idea for us to, figure out something that we can do next year consistently over time and rope in more people, because I think this message needs to reach a lot more. So I'm really excited for us to host this. And I would love to also explore really doing something like this for men, because men are so oblivious to some of these things that I want to take like a bat and smash them over their heads like mosquitoes. But Arushi is covering her face. Okay, we can cut this out of the recording if we don't want this. But because it's so, it's so important to know bodies, so important to understand health, and it's important to understand everybody's health, right? Irrespective of what the context is. We live in a world where understanding our own health is important, understanding gendered health is important, because awareness comes when you understand transgender, when you understand needs of LGBTQI people. You need to be able to create this awareness. So we should surely plan something that's much wider and larger. But thank you so much, Aruna, for your time, and what a delight it was to hear you speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I just will add to that. I think you were fantastic. This was such an engaging, informative session. And yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the session.
I would already apply to be a speaker for the November conference. So if anyone's on jury here, you know who to push forward.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. Okay, great. And we'll probably
pitch.
also, we'll
I love
probably
that
also,
pitch. Yeah.
I know. We should totally look at, so I have also created a separate section for master classes, which is not through the CFP. And I think this would be a very interesting segment for that. So I'll reach out to you through Arushi, Aruna. Thank you so much
What
for
a
your
fantastic pitch as well.
Founder mentality, never stop advocating for yourself.
Well, we're just learning more things. This is great.
No, that's important for women, especially self-promotion, for
100%.
sure.
If we don't push ourselves forward, who the hell will?
Correct. Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you
so much, guys. Thanks for spending your Saturday morning with me. I hope this has been useful, and I hope to hear from you guys.
Thank you for your